Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Cyberforce number 11, cover dated March 1995, and this is part 3 of a 3-part storyline written by Claremont and illustrated by Marc Silvestri. But as we get into the issue itself, we'll see there isn't very much Marc Silvestri in evidence. But the cover is full Marc Silvestri, inked by BATT, and it features, of course, Cyblade, Velocity and Ripclaw. They're in kind of medieval fantasy garb. And who could this be in the midst of all these wires and this helmet? Well, it'll turn out to be Detective Alessandro Morales, who is Chris Claremont's character. But nothing like this ever actually happens in the issue itself, so it's a pure fantastical image dreamt up by Marc Silvestri. Looks nice, as I said, a little bit strange with all these wires around Alessandro's head, and we don't quite know who she is from this cover. It could be Ballistic, but it isn't. It's Claremont's character. So let's open this one up to the splash page, and we do get a very nice splash page here of Impact getting knocked back from a punch of some kind. And we get a whole spiel here from Claremont regarding how astonishing it is to see a huge guy like Impact get knocked back just like this. So the creative team over here, Marc Silvestri pencils, Chris Claremont plot and script. What that means is that Claremont sent, as was the way back when the two collaborated on Uncanny X-Men, a Marvel style plot to Silvestri, who lays out the issue. And then when the finished pencils and inks come back to Claremont, he produces the script to include first-person narration such as this, which is from Detective Morales, and the dialogue and so on and so forth. But it looks like this issue was up against a deadline crunch. We've got a little thank you from Chris Claremont here in this box to Bruce and the main office staff at the Bitter End Yacht Club, without whose help and fax machines this issue never would have made it. Thanks a whole lot. So this issue was late in comparison to the previous issue, and it looks like it was a bit of a rush job towards the end as well. So the inks and embellishes by BATT, that means that he is finishing the pencil art. But who's responsible for the pencil art? Well, we have pencil assists from David Finch and Michael Turner, and I'll point out when we shift from one to the other in the course of the artwork on this issue. There's also ink assists too. So this, by the way, is Raglan, and you can see very clearly the style of this drawing here. That is not at all Marc Silvestri's style. That is, I think, Michael Turner, it looks to me like. But this page is Silvestri, and so is the double page spread that follows. And we have here another little indication of the deadline crunch for this particular issue. So this is Morales' first-person narration. I can't imagine how any of them can, but there's Cyberforce, and look at how that's cut in there. That is like as if it was a photocopy pasted over the artwork or something. It just looks all wrong there, like there was no time to fix it before the thing went to press. But the double page spread looks good, and Morales is saying how the odds look lousy against Cyberforce. They were attacked by Raglan and his Super Shocks unexpectedly at the end of the previous issue. This is the kind of backgrounds that Silvestri likes to draw. No straight edges, everything done by eyeball. We get the curvature of Empire City there, which is the location of this battle, all done by eyeball. It's exactly what he likes. So that's a pretty nice spread there. And here we already are moved away from Silvestri on pencils. So we've got David Finch now for a few pages on pencils, finished by BATT on inks. We do have those Silvestri layouts, but like his hand on these pages is pretty light. And so that's a little bit disappointing. So we've got a back and forth here with the various members of Cyberforce and the Super Shocks. And ultimately the Super Shocks get the better of Cyberforce on these pages. Look at this. This is pure David Finch. There's very little Marc Silvestri there in that drawing of Cyblade. Now let's continue, get past this ad here, and here we have Raglan standing triumphant over Heatwave, and then we have a little holographic projection of Killjoy, because What happened at the end of the previous issue was Cyberforce had a plan, which was to send a covert team to free the captives of Cyberdata, that is Miranda Tai, and also Chip, and they've been beaten by Killjoy. So here she is in a holographic projection communicating with Raglan here that she's got velocity and ballistic down. So Raglan says to her, "Got to tell you, honey bunch, up close and personal, Cyberforce ain't nowhere near as formidable as their rep. Ever consider it was you? Couldn't handle the job." So there's kind of like a back and forth between these two. They're in competition with each other. This is the Professor Herzog of Cyberdata. He says to Raglan, "Talk is cheap, bring me their bodies, then you can celebrate." In the meanwhile, Velocity and our other test subjects, the boy Chip and the girl Miranda Tai, they were abducted in the first issue of this 3-part storyline, will comprise the prototype elements of the next stage in shock evolution, the ultimate man-machine synthesis, a hunter-killer force wholly and eternally loyal to Cyberdata. But Ripclaw has something to say about that. We get some nice Claremont tough guy dialogue. "Yo, Cyberforce, I'm empowered to make one and only one offer of clemency here. You want to live, now's the time to chorus. I give up." "Never," says Ripclaw. "Your choice, Indian, your funeral. Wrong, Shock, it's yours." That's pure Claremont dialogue. That's a decent enough page there. David Finch on the art. Pretty good, Ripclaw. Let's continue. Now we get a scene switch, and we also get a switch of artists. So we're switching to Michael Turner on art for these pages set elsewhere in Empire City. So Morales has linked up with Alabaster Wu and Huntsman. These are all Claremont's characters. So these couple of pages are Claremont's characters, and Marc Silvestri is nowhere to be seen here. So Alessandro Morales is asking Huntsman what happened with the rescue of Miranda Tai and the others, and he says there was nothing he could do. He tried, but there was nothing he could do for Miranda, and he's sorry. So Morales, not happy, she says, "So am I, what do we do now?" Alabaster Wu says, "Evidently, Detective, Cyberdata's captives have been slaved into a virtual reality network. Liberating the corporeal flesh is useless so long as their consciousness remains imprisoned within the system. We have to bust them loose of this VR net first, then free them physically?" asks the detective. "Precisely," says Wu. And the detective says someone must interface with the net and disengage the cybernetic linkages. Wu says that. So the detective, Morales, she says, "That's you, Huntsman, am I right?" "No." And this, we learn a little bit more about Claremont's Huntsman. He's this man of mystery figure. Claremont going for that kind of trope of Wolverine, his mysterious past, Gambit, his mysterious past when it comes to Huntsman. So Huntsman reveals a little bit about why he's not going to go into virtual reality. He says, and after a pause, "anchored to the physical world. I can't function in cyberspace." So why on earth would that be? That's interesting. But again, Claremont leaves it as a mystery instead of explaining it fully. So Wu says he's got operatives to go in, but Morales volunteers. She's going to go in. She says it's her responsibility to pull them out. That's typical Claremont, that focus on things like obligation, duty, responsibility. Those themes are important in his work. And then we have this moment between Huntsman and Morales where it's implied that maybe there's a little bit of romantic chemistry between them. Another great trope of Claremont's work, of course. And Huntsman is entrusting Miranda Tai's life to Morales. She says she means that much, more than you can know or possibly imagine. But we don't get an explanation as to what exactly is the relationship between Huntsman and Miranda Tai. So more mysteries here from Claremont, and kind of annoying in a way. But Morales promises, "I'll bring her back to you, Huntsman, safe and sound. I'll bring them all back. For that, you got my word." So then our scene switches to back to the fight outside in Empire City. Huntsman has gotten involved at this point, so some time has passed. We don't even have a narrative caption saying that, like sometime later. He's suddenly there helping out Ripclaw against the Super Shocks. This page is by Michael Turner as well. We can see that very distinctively in this 3/4 profile upshot of Ripclaw. And so the battle continues. Here we see that these super shocks are capable of functioning even when their human drivers are unconscious. An anchor image here by Michael Turner of Cyblade, and she is confident that her electroblast will short out the suit, but it doesn't work. So they're up against it. And then the scene switches to Detective Tommy Costello, who's Morales' partner, and Ballistic. And here we see that Ballistic doesn't have her cybernetic eye or her cybernetic arm, and she is really delighted that all of her is real, but she's in a virtual reality. And here we've got Professor Herzog and Cindy, his assistant, posing in the form of Alessandre herself. Your fondest wish, Nichtvar Liebling, to once more be as you were born, holy flesh, holy human. And he says, for myself, I find humanity a highly overrated concept. So Ballistic recognizes Herzog, even though that's not his usual appearance. And he continues and says, of course, every desire has its consequences. As flesh, its self-evident limitations. Silence our test subjects, if you will, Cindy, and immobilize them. So Claremont, again, another one of his kind of master themes is enslavement, body control, corruption of body and soul, and a kind of BDSM type subtext, and we're getting that going on here with these masks put over Ballistic and Tom's face in cyber reality. And oh yeah, so that wasn't Raglan in the little box on the inside cover, but it is Michael Turner art. I was correct about that. So Herzog continues, you're no longer a cyborg. He says to Ballistic, all my super shock need to do is twitch its fingers and your arm will be torn from your shoulder. Now let us bring forth our final player. And that turns out to be Ballistic's sister, Velocity. And she is herself there, but she's covered in this suit. And Herzog is boasting how, thanks to your noble Dr. Corbin, whose face I wear in this scenario here, fortunately technology marches on. And I found a better way of getting control over Cyberforce. So he says here, and young mutants with abilities. Take a subject while they're young and their character quite malleable. That's spelt wrong. So again, just another indication of the time duress that all the creatives were involved in, or under rather, in getting this issue out in time. So Herzog continues, introduce the proper mental indoctrination, and the potential exists to create the ideal operative. So this metallic suit wraps around Velocity and it changes her, it corrupts her soul, as I was saying, like a classic Claremont theme. And he says, cyberdata is truth, all else deception to these operatives. We could betray them outright and they could watch it happen, and they will still find a means to rationalize it to the company's benefit. Absolute loyalty derived from a faith that cannot be broken. Even minimal immersion in this conditioning process produces the most extraordinary and delightful results, as you're both about to learn. You've 1 minute to make peace with your god, then the hunt begins. So Ballistic and Tom Costello to be chased by Velocity. Very Michael Turner face there on Tom Costello, and not at all Marc Silvestri. As I was saying, like Silvestri's pencils, very loose layouts, I'd say. Now here we are back in Empire City. We've got Heatwave, we have got Stryker. They're doing a bit better against the Super Shock troops. But here's Raglan. This is Raglan, and he's wearing this updated suit, the one that's been tested in the virtual reality. And he chops off one of Stryker's arms, gets the better of Cyberforce. So Cyberforce rabbit, as he says, classic Claremont language. They rabbited. So Raglan is delighted. He went mano a mano with big bad Cyberforce and he beat them. Man, when Killjoy hears about this, she'll just choke. So then we switch to Killjoy. She's watching the virtual reality chase of Ballistic and Costello. But here is another first-person narration. Now again, that should not be colored yellow. It should be different from this one because this is Morales' first-person narration
Caption color, Wu's cybersuit worked. I'm into their mainframe. And nobody hears the wiser. I like this little detail of Killjoy eating the apple there while she watches Ballistic and Costello run from Velocity. Wait a minute, is that me on the main display? Not if I can help it. Oh, so Cindy says, do you really intend to kill them, Professor? And Morales says here, not if I can help it, you bimbo slut from hell. And so what she does here is she's got control of the virtual reality scenario. And this is classic Claremont here, like again, playing around with characters' bodies. So how's Velocity going to catch Ballistic and Costello? If Morales modifies the program so that with every step she takes, Velocity's mass doubles. Now this does have this kind of trace of Silvestri, because Silvestri was very good with this kind of comical cartooning on the original Uncanny X-Men run with Claremont. So there may be a little bit more of his work here indicating this fattening up of Velocity. Now, the story continues. The Professor and Cindy are aware that someone's interfering with the program, and here Morales makes her appearance, but in the guise of a skin suit character. I'm Risque, or Risk, she says, and cyberspace is my domain. Yeah, right, she says in her first person narration. Pull the other one. Of course, they don't know. You're bluffing, and I don't intend to give them the chance to find out. This gets better and better. I punch them in virtual, they collapse for real. I not only have a skin tight, all my very own, but my superpowers to go with it. What a rush. And look at that, the very Top Cow designed superhero costume. You wouldn't get the likes of that in Marvel at the time. But I wonder, was that designed by Silvestri? I'd expect that he designed it, but this is all David Finch pencils on these pages. So Morales decides that's enough. She says to herself, you're a cop, you're on the job here. Let the jazz of the action sweep you away. You're no damn good to anyone. I broke into the bank, now to break it. So she addresses, Ballistic here addresses Killjoy from virtual reality. She says, I'm so glad you decided to stick around to the bitter end. This one's for you. And then she bops her with her cybernetic arm. So now Risque, but it's Morales, says to Ballistic, I've reintegrated the other psyches with their bodies, Ballistic, and done what I can to purge the cyber data programming. The problem is getting you guys out of this place in one piece. And Ballistic says, leave the guards to me. So now they're all out of the tubes. They're free of cyberspace, and it's all over. Sunday morning, La Baguette delete. Back where this all began, and it did in the first issue of this 3-part storyline. This is kind of hilarious, having Impact there in his trench coat and hat, rather like the Thing when he would go out into New York to disguise himself. So they're all sitting around having morning coffee and bagels, and there's a little bit of talk there about the fact that Raglan and Cyberdata, they got away. And so who is it here? I think it is maybe it is Ballistic that says, it is Ballistic says, point of the engagement was to evaluate the opposition, she says to Velocity. Raglan's the new hot dog at Cyberdata. We needed to learn how he thinks and reacts in a crunch, how he manages those assets. And Ripclaw adds, and determine as well, little fun, the capabilities of those assets, especially the super shocks. So Raglan won, Cyblade says. Because we allowed it, we tested him to his limits, but kept well clear of ours. So Cyberforce, not defeated. It was all in order to determine the limits of Raglan and the super shocks. Okay, interesting. But here we get a little confusion in terms of like who should be speaking. So this is Morales, and she says, what about Herzog's plans for the kids in Empire City? And Ballistic says, Risque posted them on the global net, with mass faxed copies to every news organization and prosecutor's office in the country. But this is Risque. Morales is Risque. So something's gone wrong there. Maybe this was supposed to be Velocity. Maybe that question would make sense coming from her. In any case, then we get this top-down shot. Look how loose the pencils are there. And again, this is Michael Turner on the art on these pages. So, yeah. Turn the page, final page. We have a little bit of business here with Chip, saying that the virtual reality technology of Empire City is far superior to anything he could produce. Cyblade says, my goodness, is such a thing possible? Costello thinks that Empire City and their tech is totally illegal, but Morales thinks leave them alone. It's time for them to go back to be real cops walking the beach beat. And then Ballistic has a gift for Morales. This little box here wrapped up with a ribbon and bow. You got yourself a skin tight name. Now get a real skin tight suit to go with it. So it's that ridiculous costume designed by Silvestri. Wear it with pride, Morales. So we get a little laugh at the end. That's a pure Michael Turner of this era face. In your dreams, Lieutenant Costello, sir. To Risque, who ought to have her head examined. I'll drink to that, she says. So this is very much a kind of Claremont ending here. Don't laugh too loudly, Tommy. Wait till you see the sidekick suit they had made up just for you. Finn, the end. So, 3-part storyline. Marc Silvestri was certainly involved with the first part, much less with the second, and barely at all with this third and final part. And as I said, it came out late. Another rush job, just like the previous part. It seems like the method of working Marvel style didn't exactly pan out well in terms of the finished product. A little bit of confusion amongst the creative team, maybe because really only Silvestri and Claremont were the ones most used to the Marvel method and not the other creators on board with this. In any case, not exactly a very memorable story. Sort of annoying that we didn't really get the full details on either Empire City, Alabaster Wu, Huntsman, Miranda Tai. You'd expect to learn a little bit more than we did over the course of these 3 issues regarding them. There's only little breadcrumbs that Claremont's giving us regarding his own characters. There you go. Some advertisements, a talent search there. Silvestri growing his stable at Image during the period. No letters page. More advertisements. That is the end of my review of Cyberforce number 11. If you enjoyed this issue, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the review, please like the video on YouTube. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.